Danielle Pashko from Soulhakker, and I'm here with Kashif Khan. He is a best-selling author, conscious entrepreneur, and the founder of the DNA company. Kashif, so nice to meet you, and thank you for taking this time to speak with me.
Pleasure. Good to be here.
So, when many people hear about DNA, they immediately think that their health is predetermined, but we know that not to be so. Can you explain a little bit about epigenetics to maybe take some of the fear away who think that if, bad genes went on their family, they're predestined to have the same kind of outcome?
So this thinking comes from the way research was done, which was who pays for the research? Pharmaceutical companies, and they're looking to make a pill. And so there are genes that directly cause disease that get turned on and off, but that's a very small percentage of what we're dealing with today. The majority of our challenges are chronic disease, right? They're rooted in inflammation, autoimmunity, low cellular energy,
Yeah.
and those things don't just turn on because a magic gene exists. But your everyday biology, from your hormone production to your detoxification to your metabolism, are all directed by genes. So the way we do those jobs are different, right? And so if you now understand the way you do the job, epigenetically, your environment, your nutrition, your lifestyle, you can start to make the right choice. So it's kind of both hand in hand. Your
Yeah.
genes plus your choices equal the net result.
Right. And I know that this was part of your own personal journey, what made you get into this field. You had your own challenges that came up. And from what I understand, when you started to learn about your genes and your own gene expression, it changed everything about your lifestyle. I'm sure the way you eat, the way you live,
Yes.
habits, all of that.
And it also taught me what to prioritize because it is overwhelming today when you once you
Yeah.
jump into this sort of wellness world, it's like everything sounds good, right?
Right. I know.
It all sounds like exactly what you need.
Yeah.
Where do you start? And so I would say the easiest thing about this is it helps you prioritize. So to your point, for example, there's a gene called GSTM1. And that gene is a primary driver of glutathione activity in your gut. So glutathione, the body's main master antioxidant, it's
Yes.
used in different parts of your bodies in different ways. This gene tells your gut how to detoxify what comes along with your food, right? So that gene I'm missing. It's not
Mm.
even about a version or variant. It literally doesn't exist in my genetic code. And
Wow.
so, yeah, and
Interesting.
so it's called a copy number variation. It's a unique form of variant where the entire gene it just isn't there, right? And so this instruction isn't there. And so my body doesn't do this job. My body does not have a gut detox system. So I used to be very sick,
Mm.
but now I'm not sick at all. In fact, I'm healthier now than in my 20s. So does this gene equal gut illness? It doesn't equal it. But for the things that would break your gut down and cause leaky gut and cause gut dysbiosis, I would get hit by those things way, way faster than the typical person.
Right. Well, I think that would explain like a lot of people who have like mold illness or Lyme disease, or they can be in an environment or a sick building that has, not a good environment, and they're completely affected because they have poor detoxification pathways.
Yes.
And then someone else who lives in the same house, not even feeling it. And you're like, are we living in the same place here? Why is this person super sensitive and that person's not? And I guess that it would be wise for that person to find out how well, if they're producing glutathione very well, how well they're detoxifying. I'm sure that would make a lot of sense in terms of how they could really start with their healing.
That's exactly it. And that's why there's so much confusion because we don't all have the same answer.
Right.
And when you can't come up with a standard answer, the pharmaceutical industry doesn't like it because you need to lead to one pill, right?
Yeah.
So, as an example of exactly what you just said, there was a research study that was done in North Carolina at a military base. And that particular, the US military, by the way, has incredible medical data. They
Mm.
retain a lot of data. So if you want to learn, it's a good place to go, right? So this particular military base, if you were stationed there, there's a 30% elevated chance that you're going to develop Parkinson's.
Wow.
Yeah, and that doesn't make sense because we believe Parkinson's is a disease that just turns on one day. It's in my blood, it's in my family, it's in my DNA, right?
Mm.
So why in this location? Then you start to study. So that's the genetics. Something's
Right.
going on there. Then the epigenetics are in that location because of where it is near industry. The drinking water has a forever chemical in it called TCE,
Mm.
right? And TCE is already known to be neurodegenerative. We already know that's true. Now, when you take that data to the medical or pharmaceutical or chemical world, they'll tell you not true because 100% of people would get Parkinson's if it was caused by this thing. If you're telling me that
Right.
Parkinson's isn't a disease, but it's just neural inflammation and neurodegradation from a chemical, then why didn't everybody get it? Because 70% of them did have the detox pathways active to clear that chemical out. The
Right.
people that genetically didn't do a good job of that particular form of toxin, there's many things, parasites, mold, metals, plastics, and your
Definitely.
body has different pathways for all of those things. The specific pathways for that type of forever chemical, those are the people that could not clear it fast enough, that experience neurodegeneration, that when you go to a doctor, they say, hey, that looks like Parkinson's,
Hmm.
right?
That makes so much sense. And also, something else that's interesting about knowing your genes is I work with a population of women who are going through perimenopause, menopause, and everyone is talking about bioidentical hormone replacement therapy. And I think it's important to look at estrogen metabolism because if we can't clear estrogen, there's this conversation, do hormones cause cancer? And now people are saying, no, they're safe. And everyone's talking about it, and people are not really seeming as concerned about the potential fallout of being on these hormones. And I'm not against hormones, I think they're okay. But from your perspective, doing genetic testing to see where you stand and how well you detoxify, would you recommend someone who's about to start hormones to do a profile on themselves?
So I would say that thing is probably the most important place where you need to understand your DNA first, because of exactly what you just said. For
Fascinating.
years, yeah, years and
Wow.
years and years and years and years, scientists, doctors, researchers, watch out, black box warning, this could cause cancer.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, sorry, we made a mistake. No problem. Remove the black box warning. I agree with make it accessible, make it available, make it easy, but I don't agree that when you have that giant gap in opinions, that you can just leap from one to the other. There's something in the middle. In the middle is what we call bioindividuality. You can prove whatever you want in a study, depending who you're studying,
100%.
right?
This should be mandatory in a doctor's office. If you're going to prescribe hormones, even bioidentical, they should do some kind of testing to know
Yeah,
how they're going to react to it.
yeah.
That would take so much of the fear away. Cancer runs in my family, and I should actually be doing your testing because my mother had breast cancer, I had thyroid cancer, I've had some autoimmune issues, so I know I have some issues with my detoxification.
But
So to really to understand if I'm a candidate, I think I'm going to go ahead and do that before I start hormones. So I'm glad that you were able to explain that because I feel like this is everyone should be talking about this more.
yeah, I agree. This is the
Yeah,
one area where it's so important and it's so easy to avoid a mistake, right? Just a little bit of
100%.
data gives you personalization. And so, there's this, I'm not saying hormones good or bad. I'm saying every single man and woman listening to this has the ability to take hormones if they want,
Right.
if they personalize it. If they
Yeah.
personalize it, it's very, very easy to make a mistake. So what could go wrong? You suppose genetically your CYP19A1 gene is somewhat overactive. Then the process of aromatization, which is a conversion of testosterone into estrogen, is happening a little too fast. So you're making far more estrogen than you may need,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Now, once that's done, the next step is to make what are called the estrogen metabolites. And this is what doesn't get discussed in most doctors' offices. It doesn't end at estrogen, it ends at the metabolites. You turn it into other things.
Right.
And those other things are 2-hydroxyestrogen, 4-hydroxyestrogen, and 16. And if you happen to make the 4-hydroxyestrogen, that pathway, there's a gene called CYP1B1 that sees the estrogen in your body and says, I'm turning it into that. And if that's the dominant pathway for you, that's your net result, more 4-hydroxyestrogen. Now, if your detox pathways are also compromised, like you said, yours are,
Yeah.
you're estrogen dominant, estrogen toxic, can't detoxify it. Now, add on top of that story a baseline hormone that happens to flow down that same pathway,
Hmm.
and you're overfilling the bucket. You
Yeah.
could have I mean, there's estradiol, estriol, estrone, progesterone,
Right.
DHEA, progesterone. There's so many things that can make your cocktail. If it's
Hmm.
an off-the-shelf standard high-dose estradiol, you might be overfilling this bucket, and all of a sudden your body's saying this stuff is highly inflammatory, and I can't detoxify it because my detox systems don't work. So it starts to store it in your fat,
Hmm.
and women have fat where?
Yep.
Breast tissue, right? And you wonder why there used to be warnings this can cause breast cancer and now they're removed because it's not true for everybody. And so I agree, let's create access, but it is very true for some people.
Yes.
So now there isn't a question you can ask that comes into play where you're making a decision around health and wellness that can be personalized, from the simplest thing to vitamin C to the most complex thing like preventing cancer. All of it can be personalized.
And I thank you for making that distinction because a lot of people just brush it off. Hormones are safe now.
Yeah.
And I think you have to do it in a more intelligent way. And this seems like a very precise way to find out where you land. So I
Mm.
really appreciate that. I also know that you're into molecular hydrogen inhalation therapy. I'm personally a fan. I have my own machine. I
Cool.
had very bad neurological Lyme, and it helped me a lot. But I'm curious what you're using it for, what kind of outcomes you're seeing with it, because it's so strange. I live between New York City and Miami, and in Miami, there's a lot of wellness centers that carry it. In New York City, you cannot get a treatment, and that's why I had
Yeah.
to buy my own machine. I don't know why it's not popular, but it's awesome. So if you can explain a little bit about it.
So New York has many challenges like that, unfortunately. You
Yeah.
know, it's so unusual. You think like what people some people say is the greatest city in the world. There's very
Right?
little access to good functional medicine, right?
Telling you, I know.
Yeah. And that's where lobbying sometimes works. Now we just have to ask who's lobbying, right? And so this molecule, to answer your first question of where did I gain interest, is my own family, like my mom, getting her off of her blood pressure medications, reversing her macular degeneration, reversing her cataracts.
Really?
Yeah, she doesn't have macular degeneration anymore, and I can claim that for hundreds of people now,
That's
right?
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
So what is macular degeneration? It's oxidative stress. Your eyes have the third highest density of mitochondria in your body. So when you experience oxidative stress, it's going to be the third highest location where you feel that, right?
Mhm.
So this molecule has a few key attributes that make it so fascinating. It is the smallest molecule in the universe. So there isn't a single barrier or membrane in your body that can block it, which means the areas that typically don't get detoxified, that linger with inflammation, do get detoxified. It is an antioxidant. It will go find removal and sorry, find and locate and remove toxins, right?
Mhm.
Even intracellular, even inside the mitochondria. It will actually cross the mitochondrial membrane and remove oxidation from years and years and years of burning oxygen and nitrogen as fuel, nitric oxide as fuel. It will get that out, right? So now, because it's so small, it's surprising that it's also so intelligent.
Yes.
It actually knows when it enters your body where the source of inflammation is the highest, and it will start to prioritize that tissue first, and it will start to heal by removing whatever toxins are causing the inflammation and actually support the tissue repair. So it'll go to where you need it first. It also knows what is beneficial and what is not. So it's one of the few antioxidants that is actually discriminate and won't touch the good stuff.
Mm.
When some people use a binder and like I feel fatigued, yeah, because you
Yeah.
also lost all your minerals and nutrients, right?
Right,
And
right.
so it's very intelligent in that way. The other thing it does is, and this is perhaps the most important thing, there's a gene pathway called NRF2. And this pathway is responsible for, it's like a master control switch for 200 detox and antioxidation genes.
Hmm.
Imagine you have all these mini switches for like, I just walked into a factory full of chemicals. I need extra support. Like you mentioned before, the gene expression turns on. All
Yeah.
these detox genes start working that normally don't work at that level. They're usually sitting at a 2 out of 10. Now they're 8 out of 10 temporarily, right? So NRF2 is a control switch that determines what volume these genes are operating at. So each gene does a job. This one controls how well it's doing the job. Hydrogen cranks up NRF2 to maximum volume, which means you just cranked up 200 detox and antioxidation genes to maximum volume. It's like taking 200 different supplements to manipulate the expression of 200 genes. And that's why I love it. And that's
Yeah.
why did my mom reverse her macular degeneration? Because what was causing the oxidation very effectively got removed.
Yes.
Because the oxidants in her mitochondria got cleaned up. And because hydrogen also induces mitogenesis, it induces the production of new mitochondria,
Right.
right? And this is why we get these diseases of aging, not because we're old, because we don't have energy, right?
Definitely, definitely. That's so interesting. And also, when I was going through my issues after Lyme, and then COVID sort of wiped me out for a bit, and my eyes were affected, and I had the best vision prior to that, and I was like, what is going on? And I also noticed from doing the molecular hydrogen that my eyesight got a bit clearer. So I know it was doing something. And now you're reminding me. I've been feeling so well. I haven't used it in a while, but maybe I'll go back for a tune-up.
Go
So
back, yeah. So
yeah, yeah.
the spike protein attacks your mitochondria. That's where it goes.
Yes.
And so this is why people are saying cardiovascular issues, number one, density of mitochondria in your body,
Yes.
brain fog and anxiety, second highest density of mitochondria in your body, and I can't see anything. This is why these three things are happening. That's where you have the most mitochondria. So that's where the spike protein goes.
Wow. And also, regarding DNA testing, and this is something that I struggle with, and I'm wondering how you would explain this to people. So there's people like myself. I've worked in the functional medicine world as a nutritionist for over 20 years. I eat well. I do yoga. I do martial arts. I meditate. I do all the practices. I'm like a picture of health. I've been through a million health challenges, but I do take such good care of myself. So let's say I did a genetic profile, or someone like me does that, and then they find out they have all this disease risk, but they're already doing everything right. Is there something that would give them some reassurance to say, no, this still is good for you? Like maybe it would change up their diet, or give them some insight to still give them some power to not be like afraid to see what
Yeah.
else this might be
So
looking.
I understand that thinking because when there's a misunderstanding in what's possible with genetics. So what the thinking is, I don't want to know if I have a risk for Alzheimer's because that in itself will cause the anxiety that gives me Alzheimer's, right?
Yes, yes,
Right. And I get that. But that comes along with the belief that there's nothing you can do about it. So
right.
it's not a prescription. It's not here's a gene that means you're getting Alzheimer's. No, it's like here's a gene that shows us if you get inflammation, which is the foundation, step one, the first thing that's going to fail is your neuroplasticity, and you're likely to get that disease before. All the diseases are the same. They're all rooted in inflammation, autoimmunity, and low cellular energy. They're
Yeah,
the same thing.
yeah.
Which card is going to fall first? That's genetically predetermined by your hardware quality. So now we're saying, here's the priority. It's not a prescription.
Hmm.
But now that we know the biology that explains why you would get this disease, we know exactly what to do to prevent it.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
And let's use Alzheimer's as that example. For example,
Okay.
right, just to give people a sense of hope, right? Which
Yeah.
is there's a gene called ApoE, right? ApoE is referred to as literally the Alzheimer's gene.
Yes.
And if you have ApoE 3/4, you're told you have a 10 to 12 times elevated risk of dementia. And if you have an ApoE 4/4, you're told you have a 17 to 25 times elevated risk. And that's all you're told. It's kind of
You
like
hear
good.
about it like the Grim Reaper gene. Like you're like,
Yeah.
oh crap, like I
Yeah.
don't want to, that
Now,
tends to be very scary.
now ask the doctor that tells you that, how does the ApoE gene cause Alzheimer's? Like
Hmm.
what's the actual biological action? They won't be able to answer the question because it's not true.
Mm.
It's associated to people that already. So when you have a research model that only studies disease, a disease-centric model, then
Yes.
you're only going to allocate genes to disease. You're only going to tell people once the disease has started how the gene is related. You're never going to tell people how they got there to help them prevent it. So what does the ApoE gene do? It is responsible for lipid transport. It helps your body move cholesterol around. LDL is sent out, HDL carrier brings it back and gets cleared through the liver. That cycle is orchestrated by the ApoE gene, right? Now, if you have inflammation in your brain, your
Hmm.
body is going to respond by deploying cholesterol into your brain.
Yes.
Once the cholesterol gets to your brain, it used to be inflammation was something that had to do with an injury, something acute, right?
Hmm.
Now inflammation has to do with uh, toxins, cortisol, metabolic disaster, things that
Yeah.
our ancestors didn't deal with, right?
Right.
So there's a toxin sitting here causing inflammation. The cholesterol molecule comes into contact. The cholesterol molecule, by the way, is sent there to fight the inflammation. The cholesterol now starts to harden, oxidize, and form a plaque because the toxin is damaging it. If you have a good version of the ApoE gene, it still does its job of removing it.
Mm.
If you have a bad version of the ApoE gene, it doesn't recognize it anymore. It's like, that doesn't look like cholesterol. I'm just going to leave that there.
Right.
It starts to form in what we call an amyloid plaque,
Hmm.
which slowly kills brain cells and leads to a cognitive drop. And eventually you get diagnosed with the cognitive disease.
Yes.
When really the first question is, why did I have inflammation in my brain? What got me there? So if somebody has the bad ApoE gene, yes, it means if you have inflammation, greater chance of developing Alzheimer's versus the average person. So let's then investigate for you, where would the inflammation come from? Let's look at the other genes. Is it your toxic hormones? Is it that your gut is leaky? Is it that you don't do well with airborne toxins and everything that you breathe passes right into your bloodstream? There's so many things we can find,
And
and
that
now
can be
we work
discovered
on
through
that.
testing.
Sorry?
that can be discovered through your testing.
All discovered and also all now addressed,
Interesting. Okay.
right? And now you just never cause the inflammation, ever worry about this disease-centric gene.
Right. Wow. That's really interesting. And then I just have this question too, because there's a lot of measuring things and quantification, and I'm just wondering how much, maybe not through your work, but you personally believe, and also energetically, spiritually, faith, down regulating the nervous system, how much that changes our gene expression. Because that was my experience a lot. I
Yeah.
ended up having a lot of healing through Tai Chi, Qigong, visualization, meditation, prayer was actually, those were my biggest healers. But I also believe in the science. So I'm just curious with you, with this like science brain, how you feel about that.
I would tell you it doesn't matter who I'm working with, whether it's a Hollywood celebrity, a NFL a football player, or just stay-at-home dad or mom.
Hmm.
We always, always, always start with the nervous system. Always.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
And it
Okay.
doesn't even matter what they're in here, like whether it's cancer, Lyme disease, a CEO trying to do a better job, it doesn't matter. We always start with nervous system. Because
Wow.
if you're in fight or flight, nothing else works,
So
right?
true.
Yeah, the body will tell you, I'm not interested in recovery and repair right now. I think I'm about to get killed by a club hitting me in the head on the battlefield. So
Yeah.
I'm going to keep inflammation high. I'm going to shut off my gut, shut off my immune system, and prioritize energy for an emergency that isn't even there. Right. And so I'll tell you, remember the very first thing you talked to me about, which was the genetics versus epigenetics.
Yes.
So there are some genes that are literally disease genes that they turn on and they cause a disease. Very few and very small percentage of our health problems come from there, but they exist.
Hmm.
The number one contributor to activating disease causing and aging related diseases is negative emotion.
Couldn't agree with you more.
It's the number you can measure what happens to gene expression
Yeah,
when you're in anxiety, stress, trauma, and loss of control.
totally.
The number one activator of longevity, anti-aging, anti-inflammatory genes is positive emotion.
I love that. Yes, I believe that too. There's a great saying that I love. It says that the basic cause of all illness is unhappiness, and the greatest healer is joy. And
Yeah,
I really
yeah.
believe that.
And we have a culture that makes us feel guilty for taking a break and enjoying something.
It's so true.
Yeah. Just being in awe, like seeing a beautiful tree or
Yeah.
smelling a flower, the feeling of awe
Hmm.
activates anti-aging genes. Feeling love, petting and squeezing the poop out of your dog.
Yep,
That
it's true.
activates, yeah, it activates hormone production that makes you healthy. Oxytocin, baseline foundation for your other hormones, right? We are
Yeah.
supposed to enjoy, we're supposed to have love, and we're supposed to have companionship. If you look at studies around longevity, anyone that is a centenarian has high quality relationships,
Yes.
right? And if you look at the blue zones and the places, and not just the ones that we know about, there's other blue zones too where people live a long time.
Yeah.
It's always like the family at the dinner table. There's always a sense of purpose. The Japanese call it ikigai, sense of purpose. They don't die without their sense of purpose. It doesn't, they don't retire,
Yeah.
right? So what you do emotionally and nervous system wise, I would say is it's the first lever to pull no matter what you're working on.
It's great that you go there, because there's a lot of people in the biohacking space, and they're so into the quantification and control that they're missing the psychospiritual, the emotional, like all of that. And we're mind, body, spirit, right? So it's like
Yeah.
we have to nurture all of that. So I really appreciate your insight. And if someone's watching this and they're like, okay, I need to get my genetics done, or I want to check my hormones, what is the next step for them? Do they look up the DNA company, or do they?
I'll send you a link for my direct. So the DNA, I built a DNA company,
Okay.
but I have my own sort of practice of my own where I actually support people in groups and we have a whole clinician team. So I'm guessing the people that are listening here are like, oh, I want to work with that guy, right? So
Yeah, for sure. They're gonna want to know, like, how do I get in touch with
yeah.
Kashif, and
So
like
I'll
what's
get you,
next?
yeah, I'll get you like a link that'll allow people to so I don't really market or advertise our clinical work, right?
Okay.
But I do run, I think it's literally the fastest growing functional medicine clinic in the country,
Where's
right?
that?
It's all online, right?
Okay.
Because it's all based on testing. I don't need to meet anybody. So it's
Great.
like that we're working off the data as opposed to the symptom,
So you can work
right?
with anyone in the world essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that what I'll do is I'll get you a link that will also get people a bit of a discount on testing that will come directly from my practice so that people would have the ability to work with me or my team if they want.
Great. So I'll add that. You're very well known on Instagram. So I don't know if I have it's Kashif Khan official. I think
Yes.
is your Instagram.
Cash on official.
Kash Khan official. And do you
Yeah.
have a website, or am I just going to link everything as down at the
So the
bottom?
website is actually cashconofficial.com,
Okay.
right? It's all I'm wrapping it up on under all a new brand called Signal Health that's coming because to me, health isn't chemicals and medicine. It's not even supplements. I think it's signals. Like we just need to know how the biology is communicating, right?
Yes.
And so I'm building this not just DNA but other signals too. So coming soon.
Amazing, amazing. Well, keep doing this great work in the world. We need it. We're a sick society, and we need help and answers. And this is great. So thank you for your
Pleasure.
time. I really appreciate it.